the volume a little. I don't know how that would work. Oh, well, that's fine.
Is that better?
Kind of. We can hear you.
Okay, good. So I'll talk louder. How's that?
That's good.
Okay, so I apologize for being a little bit late.
No, that's okay. Craig was on a call anyway, and I hadn't gotten your email. It didn't come through for me, so I couldn't get on anyway, so we're good now.
Okay, no worries. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how do you feel and what do you expect from today?
Feel good. Just expecting we'll probably recap the launch, talk about how it went, what we could do differently, how we can keep the hype going forward, keep the momentum going, and just have a good game plan of
making dollars
going forward.
Okay. Craig, how do you feel? What do you expect?
I feel good, Kelly, and I expect for today just to recap on this meeting and figure out what's our next game plan and execute it. How you feeling? What do you expect to take away from this meeting today?
I'm actually feeling really good about what you did. I'm tired from we had a launch last night, and you want to know how many people turned up to a launch on another event that I was running?
How many?
0.
What?
Yeah, it's because they didn't do all the things that, they didn't do what we did. They didn't plan it. They just thought they could send out invites and people would come. And, you couldn't, these are people that, I mean, I don't work with them directly like you and like we do. I work with them in a very different capacity. But I knew the morning that they would have been lucky just because of what they did. They didn't do the work. And people just don't show up anymore unless you do the hard work you guys did. So it gives you, if you think I had a tough night, yes, I had a tough night. I had to talk these guys off the wall. Anyway, that's what happens in business, and what you put in, you get out.
Pay forward.
Today, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about. We call it you call it a recap. I'm going to call it a debrief, and then we're going to have a very simple format about what worked, what didn't work, what could we do better, what are we going to do now. Right. So very similar to what you said, Wendy, but I want to structure it so that when you're working with the guys that you're working around you, you do the same thing, because ultimately you want an outcome, right? Right. And the real work starts now. It didn't start. You guys have done a spectacular job.
Thank you.
The first thing you do, and you're welcome, the first thing that you do is you acknowledge yourself. And I said to Craig yesterday, I could hear yesterday, Craig was harder than hell on himself. And so at some moment, you've got to acknowledge what you did well. And you've got to acknowledge the fact that 90 people showed up. That's spectacular. And
yeah, I think it was great. Yeah. I think it was great.
Right, and you acknowledge yourself for that. It's not that you sit back on it, you acknowledge yourself. Otherwise, you never get a chance to just really say we did really well. So yeah, I wanted to give you the perspective of these guys had exactly the same time that you did that I worked with last night. I was just a speaker last night. So you can imagine. You imagine they got me to come up and speak for them. It was very entertaining. I spoke to their staff.
Oh, wow.
Right. And in the end, it was a very expensive night for them. But you know what do you do? So
Yeah.
one thing I don't do is worry about things. I just say, okay, well, let's get on and let's do what we need to do. That's the feedback that you got. And there's no point lamenting the feedback. You've just got to accept it and do what you need to do. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the first question you always ask is what happened? Okay, so in the thing of what happened, real answer to it is we had an event, 90 people showed up, and the stats that you gave, Wendy, how many tests did you run? So let's work that. So you had your event. Was that successful?
Yes.
And I would say yes, it was very successful. Then I would say we had a goal, and in terms of the goal, I think that you guys were right on top of the goal. We wanted people to show up. It happened. Now, in terms of the roles, did the roles work? So now we go to what worked. So what do you think worked?
I think Craig did a good job of getting on the phone and calling people and reaching out to people, just drumming up people to come to the event. And I think the follow-up after the initial invite, he would call them. I would follow up with a text message and an email. We had drippings out on our social media that coincided with it, reminders. We would send reminder text messages. We would send reminder mass emails. We put up flyers inside of the facility on the doors, reminding people of the event. I think it was a good mix of just keeping it in front of people. So I think that worked well.
Okay, so in real terms, what you're saying is what worked was contact.
Yes.
Or contacting. So, and it was the initial contact, and then, so now we've got something moving. We contacted somebody. We've got the event moving. So Craig's initial contact worked.
I think the phone calls were crucial. I think the personalization and hearing from Craig moved a lot of people. I think had we just emailed them or texted them, we wouldn't have gotten the response that we got.
Okay, so all of a sudden we've got that, but then what it did, it built the base for the follow-up and the follow-through, and then the follow-up and the follow-through, because that's what you're actually saying. So
Right.
that the initial contact, just as a matter of communication stat, a personal contact, and Craig made a lot of personal contacts as well, right?
Right.
A personal contact is, in my estimation, 6 times more powerful than a phone call. And you can quantify it because there's a formula. But in my view, a personal contact is 6 times more powerful than a phone. Okay, then when you look at it, a phone call is 5 to 6 times more powerful than an email. And see, what you're describing in your statistics that you're giving me now is exactly that.
Right.
When you have the voice contact, of course, the voice contact is great because when you have the voice contact, you have intonation, you have a very different communication than if you just send an email. But having sent an email, or by having the personal contact, when you send an email, it's 5 or 6 times more likely to be opened. And then having done that, you follow up, like when you went your reminders are far more likely that people will follow them through. So if you really understand this, you can understand why, like what you worked. So what else worked? I'll tell you what I think worked the best. You want me to give you the feedback on what I think worked the best?
Sure.
Had defined roles.
Yes.
You were very clear about your roles. We were very clear that Craig was the out guy, out there doing the physical and the phone calls. You were the in-person that was doing all of the contacts through the emails and the feeds and that. That's what worked. To me, that level of focus over the 3 weeks is what brought you the 90 people to the room.
Right.
Understand, Craig?
I do. I think so. Wendy told me that too earlier.
Yeah. So but you've got to acknowledge the roles. If you don't acknowledge the roles, you're going to fall back into the stuff that means that you're not as efficient. Craig, you talk about efficiency. That's what makes you efficient. And what was efficient about your call was the fact that each one of you knew your responsibility and your accountability. So I think that in my view, I can feel less tension and I can feel like we created momentum.
I agree.
And so by doing that, that's pure design. You understand my point?
Yes.
So, Wendy, I don't think we can say enough about the fact that it makes a lot of sense. Even now in what we're doing, the thing to me is the process has got to remain the same.
Yes.
Like now, we're going into a follow-up from the meeting. All right, now let's now start talking about getting people the event, so that when we look at the event, we say getting the people to the event worked. Now let's talk about the event. So what happened at the event?
I think things went very good overall. There were a couple areas that I think we could have done better or we'll do better next time.
Okay, but we'll get to that in a minute because we'll say, what can we do better? So
Okay.
what at the event, what happened and what worked?
Okay, so the majority of people got there right at 5:30 when it started. We had a ex-NFL player there, and he spoke briefly for about 5 minutes on the importance of something like Dari and how it can help your movement and all of that, and that was very well received. Then right after that, Skip spoke. Well, I made a brief introduction to kick things off, thanked everybody for coming. Then Billy spoke. Then Skip spoke for maybe 5 minutes about Dari and how it works. And then we went right into doing a scan of somebody so that everybody could see it and how it was working and what exactly it did. And then Craig and I, just while people were being scanned the entire night, we let the Dari people kind of work the system since they were more efficient at it, so it would flow quicker and smoother. And Craig and I just walked the room and talked to everybody and answered questions and explained things and all of that stuff. So that was the flow of it. And it was geared to go from 5:30 to 7:30. I would say the last people left probably about 8:45. And then, yeah.
And how did the scans themselves go? Did they work well?
As far as everybody knows, yes, they worked well. They were efficient. We didn't have any problems, having it start up. As far as the customers know, they got scanned and they could see their report, and we have emailed them their reports, and they were explained, their top 3 areas of concern, and they got what they asked for. Yes.
Okay, so did it give them the same thing? Like, did it say, here's the things that we can improve, and there's a concern here, here's the things that look really good, or was it always, on the here's our concerns?
So the technician who worked it actually gave them, where the concerns lie at. But in regards to the exercise prescription that used to come with the Dari motion, they no longer offer that. So he gave a few tips, but he didn't give suggestions so much to this will fix that issue for you.
Okay, but he left that to you. And Craig, did you seize on that moment?
No, I was working a room. That would have called for me to stay in one spot and explain. At the very beginning, before we had a crowd in there, I was able to elaborate a little more detailed related to the individual sport, versus just, hey, your tibia is turning at 62 degrees and it should only be turning. I was making it relevant to the information that he was giving.
Okay, but
as the room got crowded, then I had to find my way working the entirety of the room.
Okay, so here's the point I'm really making. You've got this facility, and Dari actually at that moment, I think, did you a favor by not doing the exercise analytics for you. That's your job. And by them stepping out of the way. And so now with coaches, trainers, physios from other areas, you can say, this is what our Dari motion offers you that you can take back to your facility and you can use. Now, if you're coming to our facility, this is how we use it. And that way you get more people selling. Because our problem was, in the beginning, we wanted more salespeople. And so what you're doing on that night in your momentum now is you're converting salespeople. You understand my point?
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Monday. So
go ahead.
So are you saying, Kelly, like Monday, when I make this call to ask if they have any questions about their scans and I have their scan pulled in front of me, I am letting them know that we could actually provide an exercise prescription for you, either coming in here, we could do it for you, or we could give you, how should I go about that?
Okay, what I personally do, I'd categorize them, potential facility users, potential Dari users, and cooperatives, something like that. And I would change my language no matter who I was talking to. And so what I would do if I were you, Craig, all the coaches and all the other people that were there, I would bring them together as a group and say, look, I'd like to take the time to discuss with you the potentiality of what we've got here, right? And not go into a specific report, but say, this is how you can apply the report and make it totally valuable for them to use to want to bring more people to your center or your facility. You understand my point?
Yes.
And so you've got to craft your feedback depending on who you're speaking to. Now, if I'm talking to physios and occupational health and safety guys and universities and things like that, I might be saying, bring them into the center, we'll get them started on the program and you'll reinforce the program. You've got to have feedback for each individual scenario. Does that make sense?
Man, you just opened up a can.
Which can did I open? I hope it was a good one.
Because these launches, we have a formula for doing these launches. That was a general public, some coaches, some PTs, some a little bit of everything. I just instantly just thought when you said that, I need to get Skip on the phone, not on the phone. I need to bring up one of those big TVs we have. I need to bring Skip in on a Skype. And for instance, I need to have a coach's clinic in regards to, or maybe just focusing on inviting PTs and trainers, or someone in that type of field who could come through and Skip could answer those technical questions, such as how we are able to read ground force production from a markerless system, how a trainer could use this, piggybacking off of, hold up, man. All right, let me revamp this. Coaches, trainers, gym owners. We need to categorize them as well. Do another launch for like gym owners and maybe coaches.
Now,
Then,
Craig, let me get your mind in the right space. We got to reduce cost, and we got to increase efficiency. You don't do Skype calls, you do Zoom calls. Why do you do a Zoom call?
All right. Do a Zoom call. And then when we get into like those PTs come in and other biomechanics come in, and having a special group that comes in and having them being able to answer these questions that I can't yet answer in regards to the
why do you do a Zoom call, Craig?
Why?
Yeah, why would you do a Zoom call?
Because he lives in Colorado.
Yeah, I know he lives in Colorado. But what I'm gonna suggest to you is I'll support you. I'll mediate a Zoom call for you. So you get the people to it. You give me their email addresses. We'll invite them to it, and then I'll manage it for you. Now, the reason why you do a Zoom call is we record it.
Okay.
So, and as we record it, we then have it, and then we can send it, just like I do to you guys. That's what I'm teaching you to do. You know, I don't just do a Zoom call just for the sake of the Zoom call. I record the Zoom call so I can send it to you. And when I send it to you, it's better than notes, right? So when we get them on, we get FaceTime with them, and you can move at a speed. You don't want to keep, you can bring them to the facility, but your follow-up and your follow-through with those guys now is a lot more efficient if they can just get on their mobile phones, they can get on their devices or their computers. We can have up to 20 people on the call, and we can do a Zoom and record it. That makes you more efficient. You know, and it makes them more efficient too. You've exposed your facility, and then at the end of the call, what might you offer?
To come in and see the scan.
Yeah, come in, and if you prove to them that you're right on top of this, and you can say, come into the facility and I'll support you in developing the program. Does that make sense?
It does.
Because what you're wanting to do is you wanting to keep to pick up speed, and you're wanting to add the value of the speed that you picked up. So we categorize these people, and from your point of view, the reason why I'm using Zoom is it takes a lot less bandwidth to do than Skype, and you can record it. That's why I wouldn't Skype it. And after a while, you'll find that you guys are very good on Zoom, and what you've got works really well. And people can come from mobile phones, they can come from a device, or they can come from a computer, and they can come from wherever they're at. Now, what does that do to Skip?
Puts him in an expert position, or
Puts pressure on him to perform. Right.
we want to use them as much as we can, right?
Exactly right. And we want to push the living daylights out of him so that somebody else is doing the work for you. That's what a business does, Craig. It's not all about what you can do. It's all about how you become more efficient. You do not want to be mucking around. If only 4 people show up on a Zoom, it costs you very little. If 25 show up, you're still as efficient as if they were in the center. You've got to use the technology now. It's very low cost, very high efficient. So we've got this group now. We've got this group that we're talking to and about. We can actually get them together, and we need to do it with speed. So if you're saying let's do that, and I would say to you, let's do that. Let's go out and let's work out. We know Skip knows how to do it, so we got no problem. And we're not going to have any kickback from him about what we do. He's going to support you, right? Why do we want to get it on tape? We want to get it on tape.
So that we could study it, learn it ourselves, and create a library.
Yeah, we're going to create a digital library, but not only that, we're going to create a recording that puts Chip on the spot. We're going to force him into doing what he said he would do. No prisoners.
I'm all in.
Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm setting this thing up. In 5 months' time, or 6 months' time, we're going to have to make the first payment. But we better have made a shitload of money before we make that payment.
Yeah.
Right? And if we haven't, we're going to have all the evidence of why. Right? Everything you do is particleize. Do you understand now?
I do.
And I'll create you a YouTube library of all of those recordings, just like I do with what I do now. And so you can refer back to them. I don't take things lightly. Everything I do is about education. So even on these calls, you guys are starting to learn how to be efficient on the calls. Do you understand? You guys have had to be guinea pigs on your own call. Now you have to apply the call.
Okay.
And I'll teach you on the call how to be super efficient. I mean, how can a guy in Australia be pulling the strings on a guy in Richmond?
You know what you're doing.
Yeah, and you know what you're doing too. You guys have done a great job. So we understand that now. The mechanism that you use, you don't bring people back together now unless it's going to produce real income for you. We're going to expose now at a much higher speed, because what Wendy's done is she started to train people to be digital by all the other calls she's made. So we've still got to, on our follow-ups now, we've got to go back and thank people for being there. And Wendy, you've got to think about, and you can individualize it by remembering something about the person on the night, or remembering a point in the night that you thought was important. So Craig is doing the in-person touch again by getting people together the way he's doing, and he's doing that. At the same time, we've got to be using the whatever feeds you use digitally. You've got to maintain those feeds, and you've got to do it, and it's got to be out to them while it's still warm. What happens?
Right.
People let it go cold. That's the thing about momentum. And I told you that I met Donald Trump once, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I've had a 2-hour meeting with Trump, and the only thing I remember he ever said to me, he's an asshole at best, but I remember the thing that he said to me that I've never forgotten, and that was 12
I grabbed
years.
your pussy.
No, he actually did talk about that, but that's not what I took away. What I took away was momentum. He said, never lose momentum. He said, if you create the momentum by what you do, you've got to maintain momentum. And so, Wendy, the way that we maintain momentum now is all the hard work you did in your role. You've got to maintain all the different digital feeds that you created. And the way to make them personal and develop the personal digital relationship is to remember something about the night or something about the person on the night. Get my point?
Yeah, that'll be easy.
Okay, and of course that's easy because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Right now, on the other side of it, Craig, we've got to create groups that we can speak to. And when we speak to those groups, we can speak to them in, you don't want to go one-to-one per se all the time. Like if you go to one-to-one, again, once you understand how to use Zoom or something like that and record it, you've got the recording that you can send to that person so that they've got it and they remember what happened. That's the point of it. So you've got to group these people. And again, you've got to remember what's going to twig these people in what you've done on the night. You've got to remember all the personalization of the night. So
yeah, no group text. I think this is great. This is going to be a great idea because this is great for a lot of people that couldn't make it or just they're busy, they don't have time. They can get on this, you know, at home, on their phone, wherever they are, a 30-minute call, and they can really have a good understanding of what DARI is and then follow up and get them in the facility.
Yes. Remember, Craig, our problem was, and I'm still working on the same problem. You know what the problem that I'm working on?
That's this guy. What's that?
$1,000 a day.
I had lunch with someone today, and I was just telling someone like that is my focus, and I'm realizing that we're putting ourselves in that position to make $1,000 a day.
Are you kidding me, Craig? We're putting ourselves in a position to make $5,000 a day. $1,000 a day is a waste of time.
Fucking love him.
Right? You understand my point? It's like $1,000 a day just buys us, you know, meat and potatoes. We want more than meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I want to building this in.
You understand what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
You know, what it's taken me weeks and weeks to do is to deal with how do I get more salespeople? And what we're doing right now is we're creating a whole group of salespeople for what you're doing, and they don't even understand it. You get my point? You're not trying to sell to people. You want them to buy. In today's world, it's about networks. It's about how do I network people so that we all work together and get value. And we can add the value by what we're doing. Instead of doing it the same old way that everybody tells you to do, oh, we'll market or we'll brand. What we're looking for is sales force that we don't pay for.
Yes.
You understand my point, Craig?
Yes.
Man, do I. I'm writing it all down.
Right. Well, it's being recorded as well, mate. So I really want you to understand that I haven't left from my first goal. And my first goal is $1,000 a day. Right. But I'm not working for $1,000 a day. I'm working for how do I make it 5,000? If we're going to make it 5,000, you don't want to increase your expenses. You want to increase your efficiencies. You understand my point?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Pure efficiency. And now what we're doing, by doing that, we go that way about it. Craig, yesterday you spoke to me about your investing partner, right?
Yes.
That guy made you some promises, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to hold him accountable to his promise. And the way you hold him to the promise is by the contact, the follow-up, and the follow-through. It's just a repeating, overlapping cycle. And what you must do when you do it is you must remember the triggers. Do you understand what I mean by the trigger?
Yeah, the things that triggered him to give me his promise.
Exactly right. You've got, and you don't say, well, you promised this. You go to the trigger of the promise. Wendy, does this make sense to you?
It does.
And so all you're wanting to do right now is, that's why the momentum is so important. You got to hit them while they're warm. and you're looking for the triggers that got them to be warm. And once you work that out, you then work the trigger. You don't get into all the salesman BS. You get into what they committed. Now, if 90 people showed up, that says an awful lot about you guys, and you've got to work out what it is that they did. Now Skip, he spoke for 5 minutes, right?
Right.
What did he say?
He just pretty much gave a clear understanding of what Dari's doing and that they were happy to be here on our behalf. And
yeah, well, without all the happy horse shit, what did he actually say that's going to allow you to trigger him?
To trigger Skip?
Absolutely. We're happy to be here. Yeah, so what? And did he say we'll support you all the way through this?
Well, he did tell me that. He didn't say that out loud, but he said that they are here to support us in helping people perform at a higher level or something. Did he say? A peak performance or something?
I don't remember what he said.
Okay, so again, let's use the word when we go back to Skip and we say, Skip, great that you're going to support us. Thank you for being there. What we need now to get to people to peak performance is this. We want to do a Zoom call with all of these people. We want you to be on it. It's going to be a question and answer. We're going to record it so that we've got information about how to make this thing a real zinger, right? You've got to, and when he says, oh, well, I don't know if at the time, say, Skip, this is not about whether you have time. We're saving you the damn time. You don't have to come out here. What you're going to be doing is this. This is about peak performance of your machine now, not of the individual. We want your machine to be the most efficient machine in the United States. This is how we're going to do it. You understand my point? Now you drive the living Christ out of this guy.
Put him back in let him feel like he's in the driver's seat, but we are the engine.
Yes, that's exactly right. But again, the question is, does Skip have a role? Does he have a role in, okay, does your investor have a role?
Yes.
Do all the coaches have a role?
Yes.
Okay, now, if I'm looking at it, Skip's role is to increase the efficiency of Dari Motion, not of your facility, but of Dari Motion, right?
Right.
Okay, your investor has a role. What's your investor's role?
Kelly.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, our investor has a role too.
Yeah, what's the role?
To follow up on his word.
Yeah, it put you in contact with influential people.
As he said,
yeah, it's to put you in line to meet influential people, which will allow you to expand your business. That's the role. Your coaches and all the other people, what is their role to you?
The coaches?
Yeah, all of those people that came into the center, what are their roles?
Salespeople to help us spread the word.
Salespeople to help you spread the word. Now, do you have different wordage and different language for each person?
Yes.
Yeah, as business owners, you got to know that. You got to know how to tweak the button and push it and make it work for you. Now, with all the work you've done, now's the time to capitalize and optimize, right? And when you look at it, each one of them, you have to have, your mind has to be in a different place. And your mind cannot be in poor me. Your mind's got to be in overdrive on driving the living daylights out of people to get your desired outcome. You're not followers now, you're leaders. And you're managers, and you manage the role and you lead the outcome. Does that make sense to both of you guys?
Yes.
See, when
the outcome.
Yeah. You got to demand the outcome. You got to demand what you want from this. Otherwise, you won't get it.
We manage the role.
Yes, you manage every role and you lead the outcomes. You demand of them what you want. So now what we're saying is we know what worked, right? And now we know what it is that we're going to do. And the next question that we always ask ourselves is, what could we do better?
What could we do better?
What could we do better?
We could have done a better job of making sure every single person that walked in, we had them sign in and had an email for them.
Yes. So did you collect?
Because I know there were a lot of people there that did not sign the sheet. We had, you know, some people walking around, meeting them at the door with clipboards with the sign-in sheet, but inevitably still, I know there were people there that did not sign the sheet. So,
so we could, yeah. Go ahead, baby.
Figuring out a more efficient way, if we ever did a launch again like this, a more efficient way for the scans to be done, because the scans that we had pre-booked and prepaid, it took longer than we expected to get through them, so people ended up having to wait around a long time for to do their scan, so that wasn't good.
Okay, so let me ask you the first question. Did you have name tags?
No.
We didn't do name tags.
Okay, so you know why you do name tags?
So everybody knows to talk to everybody and knows their name.
Yeah.
And then we can know who came in that said they were going to come. We can.
And it stops people to get a name tag while we gain their information.
Exactly right. So the information that you wanted was email addresses and phone number, their cell phones, right? Those are the 2 bits of information you wanted. You didn't want to overload them. You just wanted to get what you wanted. Yeah?
Turn that off. Turn that off.
That's bullshit.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Wendy, the way to improve.
The way to improve is
To have a way of, you know, and the other side of it is, if you printed a name tag, if you had name tag holders, you could brand the name tag holder, and they could take them away with them, so it becomes another particle of branding. But you collect the information, and the information you want is what allows you to get back to them. You have to work back and add the value. So if we did that, that's just something that you need to do. We're always looking for the way back.
Right.
And we're always looking for the fastest, cheapest, best way back.
Right.
So what I would do is I'd have a table near their entrance that I would make people look for their name tag, and as they picked up their name tag, I would make them walk around with their name tag, and when they had that on there, the reason why you do it is you might have the name tag and where they're from. Why would you do that?
Like where they're from, meaning the company or the school or whatever?
Yes, why would you do that?
So that we can know who we need to contact and who we need to talk to a little more than others, so we can get inside of their organization to utilize our services.
Yeah, that's true. But do you want everybody else there to know who's there and where they're from?
Yeah.
It's a way of broadcasting the diversity of what you're doing. and they're saying, oh, geez, I wish this other person would have come. And you can now ask them, so, oh, what other person would have you like to be here? Give me their details and I'll follow it up and I'll follow through. So you're constantly, from this perspective, you're working out how to get people to buy from you. You're not working out how to get people, how to sell something. You notice my conversation is not about, oh, how do I do this hard sell? My thing is, how do I keep in contact? And because I know my product. I'll tell you this right now. If I make a call, I'm 99% certain I'm going to make a sale. And my sales record is, I don't make a call unless I make a sale. So in other words, I do not waste my time if I don't think I can make a sale. Business is business to me. If I'm going out and having a drink, very different. But if I'm in a business environment, I want to know how I'm going to make a sale. And I'd say of the 90, because you're in a motion thing, everybody in that room is a potential customer or a potential client, right? The question is, how do we twig it? How do we trigger what they need to do to actually make to buy? Right? And we keep it right in front of them until they buy. Tell me anyone that doesn't need to have a Dari motion.
Everyone dealing with some sort of chronic pain or chronic disease.
Well, you're working on the way most people work and say, okay, those are the obvious ones, Craig. Every person in that room should know their physiology. Every single person that goes through you should have, and in the future, they're all going to know their physiology. You understand my point?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because what we're saying is we believe that this machine, everybody should have it. That's my attitude. So when I'm making a sale, if I make sales in hydraulic service, which is obscure as what you're doing. Only 1 in 5 people are going to buy my service. I know that to start with. So I don't waste my time with the 4 people that are not going to buy. I only go to the 1 person that will buy in the 5. Because I want success. I'm not interested in flicking through people that I know are not going to buy. In the case of Dari Motion, everybody could buy. But there's more people that are more likely to buy. And you're saying chronic pain or this or that, but every one of them is a different wordage and a different language that's used. Oh, you're looking super fit. It's great news. So wouldn't you like to know how your movement rates? Now you go to ego. You understand my point?
Yeah.
The question is, can you improve? I think I got the tool that will even improve on what you are today. Would you like to be better today, knowing that tomorrow you can get even better? Your best today, knowing you can be even better tomorrow? That's what we do with our emotion. You understand? Everybody I talk to is a customer. And especially with yours. That's what that machine does for you. Not everybody's going to use the facility, but everybody may do a motion study. That's the future, right?
Yeah.
So now do you see your market?
I see the marketing. Yes. I understand the sales aspects with the general population, creating salesmen, and I also see them being able to improve their physiology as well by utilizing Dari. I see creating service agreements for other trainers and their clients to improve value for their business. I see saving on healthcare for companies. I see working with a lot of teams, specifically going after female sports because the ACL risk is so high for field of sports, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now what we're talking about, what we could do better. And so now we can define the roles of each of the aspects of the diary, because you want to focus on what will give you the money today, knowing full well that of the 90 people there, you already had 24 buyers. So that means I only have to get another 66 of the buyers. You understand my point?
Yeah.
Because your conversion rate at that moment is about 22, 23%. Now, what we want to look at is, can we take that conversion rate and can we get it to 50 or 60%?
And also, I think it should be tapped into these 22 people that already did a scan. They should be called and talked to about their scan, personalize it, but also get them to commit to a package, regular ongoing scans. They've already done one, so they already saw the value in it and believed in it. Someone needs to reach out to them to tap into that and get them on a package.
Okay, so now we talk about when we go to that moment, you've got people that work for you at the facility, right?
Yes.
You've got to leverage them now. Craig and you just can't do everything. So, Craig, you've got to do the high-level ones, and the ones that Wendy are talking about, you've got to delegate that down the line so that people can do it. Otherwise, you'll get caught up in the volume of work. You understand?
I don't want to do that.
No. Well, you're already doing that, mate. Right? What you want to do is you want to liberate. All right. So can you understand what this debrief's doing?
Yes.
What's it doing for you, Wendy?
Actually laying out roles going forward as to how we take where we are right now and move forward and stay in our roles, and outlining how we keep the momentum going and the synergy that we've already created, and how we tap into new market and new people that weren't at the launch.
Okay. And the point of being a business owner is you've got to be both a leader and a manager. And you've got to understand that you manage the role and you lead the outcomes. So now you've got to make sure, Craig, you don't let one of your employees work with the investors. You don't let one of your employees work with Skip. That's what you do. But when you're going down the line, you've got to be able to get the people that you employ or the contractors you have, they've got to know how to language what needs to be done for people to buy. You can't do everything. You've got to know. That's where you manage the roles. But what you do is you do exactly what I'm doing now. You go to them after a call. What happened on the call? What worked? What didn't work? How do we follow it up? How do we do this? It's got to be quick. It's got to be clean. And it's got to be deliberate. You understand? You take the role of managing it, and then you take the role of leading it. You must be able to do both. You don't have the luxury of doing one or the other. Same thing, Wendy. You're obviously the better manager of resource in that, but you also have to take a lead to the outcomes in your role. Do you understand my point? That's what a business owner does. That's the fundamental difference. Employees have to be led to become leaders. And when people don't understand what needs to be done, you've got to think about it in terms of your employer as well. That person's got so much to do that they're not going to do what you want them to do unless you put the breadcrumbs in front of them. Remember I spoke to you about breadcrumbs yesterday, Craig?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They got to follow the breadcrumbs. You're leading them by dropping the breadcrumbs. You understand my point now?
Yeah, Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, and you're going to lead them to the front door, baby.
Yep.
And the front door is increased exposure, increased income by people buying and people being your best advocates of your network, and you've got to know who they are and how they will do it, who the influencers are. And as we do that, we'll start to develop our business with ever more salespeople with ever less expense. This is what we tried to, this is the point I was making to you almost on our first call. And now that's where we're at. You understand? I've been dropping the breadcrumbs, Craig. Now we got them to the front door.
Yes.
We got the front door of your facility. Now we got the exposure. And what we have to do as managers of it, we've got to make sure, was our branding strong? Was our message strong?
Okay.
You know, I'm asking you, I'm still on what could we do better? Was our message and our brand strong?
Oh, okay. I think that what we could do better is that I think that having the right follow-up plan, of course.
He said, was the message and the brand strong? That's what he's asking.
Wendy, you thought your
No.
message was strong?
No, I was telling, he was going on something else, and I was just telling Craig that you were asking, was the message and the brand strong? I think the message was strong. I don't know that the brand was strong.
And another thing is the brand was, you know why I think the brand wasn't strong, baby? Is because a couple people asked me, even a friend of mine today, he asked me, so is the Dar Emotions, is it going to be at your place? Like, and then someone asked me yesterday, like, so is this going to be here, or is this just like a demonstration of what this equipment does? So I don't think that we didn't brand it enough to where people understand that, hey, look, we're bringing this to Richmond, we first to market, and you won't find this, 1,000 miles left, right, or backwards, So I think that the brand, definitely the branding was missing. We skipped out on a major part of the message. But
Yeah,
I think by having a follow-up, we can recover from that.
Yes, exactly right. That's why we're saying, what could we do better? And the follow-up really is, we've now got to get to the point of, is it a center? Is it a facility? Dari's a product. You're never going to own Dari's intellectual property, but you own the intellectual property of the facility. That's your brand. And the more you understand, Dari's just a product. Dari is just a product.
That's right. I thought that's what you said.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
No, you're breaking up. Wait, Skip, you breaking up really bad. I mean,
yeah, it's my internet's gonna go down because I'm in a hotel room. But the real point of it is that we've got to brand the facility stronger, and we got to make Dari a product and the facility the brand. Did you hear that okay?
Yes.
All right. And that's what your job is to do now, because you want people coming to your facility.
But you're breaking up now.
Okay. What we're going to do is, do you have enough to go on right now? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, at this moment, yes.
Okay. What we're going to do is I think we've got enough to keep it moving.
But we're not hearing anything right now. Are you talking?
Yes. Can you see me now? Okay, my bandwidth is leaving me now.